What's up, dickheads? ETF is on its way. It's doing its thing right now. Not exactly sure, like everybody else, what we're going to be getting in this next patch that's supposed to be focusing on PvP. Everybody's kind of put out their thoughts and their ideas and everything like that. And I thought I would go ahead and do the same. The game isn't in a good place, and it hasn't been in a good place. And I'm more of a PvP player. I farm to PvP. With that said, the reworks that I have thought up are extensive, if you will. I believe a lot of things need to be looked at. A lot of things need to be changed. With that said, though, I'm gonna get right into what I would like to see reworked, what I would like to see changed in this upcoming patch, and see just how close to these changes end up being to what I'm hoping for. I don't see not even a third of these things that I'm looking at even coming into fruition, but I would like to. There's a lot of things that I would like to see changed. First off, I'd like to see gear reworked completely with talents and the requirements. Simply because I think there should be roles in the game. This 311.7 is ridiculous. It's an absolute ridiculous. It's just massive amounts of damage with massive amounts of armor with massive heals. You know, I think that is... Listen, for anybody that wants balance in this game, right now it's as balanced as it's gonna ever be. You know, it's like everybody running Striker in D1. But when one particular build setup is capable of doing everything, then there's no reason to run anything other than that. And I think that needs to change for diversity purposes in builds and to promote some kind of group play. You need a DPS role, a tank role, skill build roles. You know, you need roles in a group, in my opinion. Again, all of this is just my opinion. You know, the auxiliary batteries and everything like that you're capable of slotting into your skills, your 1,000 skill power for your chem launchers. All of those auxiliary batteries, they need to go. Every single one of them. They're allowing builds to be created without actually needing to spec into a particular thing, and I don't think that's good for the game. I would even go as far as to say the utility mods that have particular skill power baked into them. I would even say that those probably need to go too. If you want a good heal, then you need to have skill power. Point blank, that's all there is to it. I think there should be some kind of paper rock system working here. Okay? Now, just bear with me real quick. If you're speccing heavily into DPS, and when I say specs and the requirements and everything like that, I think the requirement for any talent or anything like that should be 10. No more, no less. 10. Okay? You need 10 reds to open this, you need 10 blues to open this, you need 10 yellows to open this. That will force everyone to spec into a particular stat to then create a role. You've spec'd 10 reds, you're going for DPS. You've spec'd 10 blues, you're going for tanks. You spec 10 yellows, you're going for skill build. okay? All across the board, 10s. Now, if you're speccing that heavily into one particular stat, then there should be talents that synergize with those roles. If I'm speccing into a DPS build and I'm heavily in reds, there should be absolutely no additional damage talents allowed to me. My gun should already be hitting hard enough that I don't need any additional talents that up my damage, okay? So if I'm specced heavily into red, no damage talents at all. And in doing so, you'll have a gun hitting extremely hard, which it should, but you're not going to have very much armor or very much health. You know, I don't want to say that you're going to be completely squishy, but I would say, what, 325 armor? 350 armor max for DPS? And then the talents that you're capable of unlocking with your 10 reds should be some sort of sustainability, armor on kill type things, you know. But no damage talents, you know, just some way to, just talents that will help keep you alive when you know, if you kill an agent, or, you know, say you kill an agent and it grants you 20% skill haste, so you're capable of dropping your chem launcher a little bit quicker, you know, just something to help keep you alive. Now with the paper rock scissors thing, spec'd into DPS, say 350 or so, you know, for the most, 300, 325, 350 armor. A tank should be sitting around, say, and we, you know, we go, when I look at all of this, you have to go as extreme as possible. So if you're spec'd into blues and you're a tank and you're sitting, say, 500k armor, okay, a DPS, I don't want to say shouldn't have a problem fighting you, but as a tank, you should be able to tank a bit of that DPS, okay? But the trade-off is your gun isn't going to hit nowhere near as hard, okay? But a tank fighting a DPS, the DPS is still going to know that he's being shot by a tank. You know what I mean? A skill build, somebody that's spec'd heavily into electronics, should be able to kill a DPS with no problem if they're running damage skills, okay? A skill build is already running pretty squishy as it is. So, I know my DPS, or my skill build, my PvP skill build, that's spec'd heavily into electronics, I'm sitting at 283k armor, okay? And it can get better, but just for sake of, you know, conversation or whatever, I'm looking at, say, 300k max or whatever for armor on a skill build, okay? A DPS won't have any problem burning right through that. A tank won't have any problem tanking through that, okay? The skill build doesn't have any weapon damage, doesn't have any survivability except through their skills. So their heals should be strong and their damage skills should be strong. So with the paper rock scissors, pretty much, you know, DPS can kill a tank, can kill a skill build. You know, a skill build can kill another skill build and can kill a DPS. A tank can kill a skill build, another tank. You see what I'm getting at? Like, there should be some form of paper rock scissors somewhere in there, So you have diversity. You have teams running different builds to synergize with other builds. As far as like spotter, I think spotter's fine. You've removed any crit chance or crit damage from pulses and things of that nature. So you know the spotter talent I think is fine. Everybody can run that. You know, if you want some extra weapon damage, then that still would require you to have somebody on your squad running a pulse that comes back relatively quick. Because if you're spec'd into DPS or you're spec'd into being a tank and you don't have any auxiliary batteries and you don't have any utility mod slots that allow your skills to have 10-second cooldowns, well then you're looking at, you know, if you run a pulse, well then you're looking at what, 60 seconds for your pulse to come back. You know what I mean? So that will help build synergy around group play. Okay? Now the gear talents, they really should be brand specific. And what I'm talking about is, say in D1, if you wanted a vigorous chest, if you wanted a refreshed mask, if you wanted, you know, prosperous knee pads, or whatever the case may be, you had to find those knee pads, and that wasn't a talent that you could roll over into something else. You know, you couldn't. It made you, if you wanted to use that particular talent, then you had to run that chest piece. And you gained in one, and you lost in another. It's a lot different in this, when I can put Unbreakable onto an Alp Summit chest, you know. So that's something that I would absolutely change. I would change talents to be brand specific, to make brands specific for the role that they're intended to be. Alps is intended to be a skill brand set. Now you look at Fenris, Sokolov, Petrov, whatever, they are all DPS type brand sets. They all focus on weapon damage. That one piece gives you that weapon damage, right?
Good job, Agent.
So again, if I'm spec'd heavily into reds, I'm, you know, plus 10 on my reds, 10 reds, whatever the case may be. That's where I think Unbreakable should sit. That's where I think Bloodsucker should sit. Sustainability. There's no reason that you should be able to run 500k armor, and if my armor gets popped, then I gain extra armor. No, that, I mean, you already spec'd heavily into armor. You know what I mean? If, you know, maybe at that point, if I'm spec'd heavily into blues and my armor gets popped, well then, you know, maybe at that point, once all of my armor has popped, then Berserk kicks in. Okay? Not a percentage of armor to up my damage, but once all of it is popped, then my weapon is capable of doing more. I don't know. I'm just spitballing as far as talents being brand centric. Talents that synergize with the role that you are building towards, okay? As far as that's pretty much what I have to say about the gear, as far as the roles and the requirements and the, you know, how I think you should focus on building heavily into one particular thing if that's the role that you are going for, okay? Now, as far as re-rolling your gear and things of that nature, I've said before, you know, because of the way they want you to roll your gear, pulling talents off of other pieces of gear, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. Except my stash is full right now, 150 of 150. Not of pieces of gear that I think maybe I would like to try to put a build together for, but full of stats and full of talent. Everybody complains about RNG and this, that, and another. I don't really think RNG is that bad. It's just the ass-backwards way that they make you have to use the recalibration station. And everybody that's saying, well, we need to be able to run or roll one stat and one talent. Listen, this isn't classified stuff. None of this is classified gear. Okay, and we didn't get 2 rolls on a particular gear until we get classified gear. So, knock off the 2 roll stuff. I mean, you're wanting everything handed to you, and it's gonna kill your grind. You know, if you can roll 2 things, well, I'll have a mid-max build tomorrow if they change that. You know what I mean? Like, 1 roll, a talent, or a stat. But with that said, I should be able to roll a red over a blue over a yellow over a red, etc., etc. Okay? Now, once I've done that, say I have a mask that has health and damage to elites, but I want to put skill haste over the damage to elites, and I roll 17% skill haste onto it. I should then be able to sit at that station and spend as much money as I want, maximizing that one stat. Not an optimization station where each time I pay for it, it goes up. But like the recal station in D1, where I spent money for the chance of maximizing that stat. And you would sit at that station for 30 minutes, spending millions and millions of credits, getting rolls that were below what you already have on your piece of gear. But you would do it. You would end up getting the stats that you were wanting, and you would move forward. That needs to happen in this. The stat requirement, as far as the circle, the arrow up, arrow down, those need to go. If I want to roll a particular talent onto a particular knee pad or whatever, and it's for that particular brand, then I should be able to do that. Know what I mean? So, gear sets. Gear sets are so underwhelming right now in this game. 2 of them are in the light zone right now. The third one you have to farm your ass off to get pieces just to craft it, just to hope that maybe it's something that's useful. And if it's not, then you have to farm all over again just to get the pieces to make something, which makes hardwired extremely irritating to even attempt to try to farm for. The other 3 sets that have been released are raid exclusive. And regardless of what anybody says, those gear sets are mainly for the raid. Okay? I'm not saying you can't run those things in the Dark Zone or in Conflict, but 9 times out of 10, you'd never see any of those in there because they're not for that. They are for the raid. You know? So we need to get gear sets back going like we had in D1. We need to have, again, role specific or skill specific gear sets, i.e. like your Firecrest or your Striker or your Reclaimer, Alpha Bridge. Putting people in a role that gave you a unique buff. And the stats on these gear sets need to be higher than high ends. Because as long as we can roll talents the way we're rolling talents now, nobody's ever going to take these things off. The gear sets do not offer anything that's better at the moment than what you can do with your high ends. So you need to really look at these gear sets. For example, the Seeker build that I have, my clusters are doing 550. Okay? I can get them up to 640 something because I've got destructive on 4 of my pieces, and with the BTSU gloves, those things are hitting 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, depending on if I'm able to get a add in the explosion of the BTSU gloves, okay? And then you look at hardwired, it gives you 20% skill damage. Well, that doesn't make me want to run that build at all. It doesn't provide anything. If I heal somebody that's at 0 health, and it, you know, it's a 6-piece tactician set in a sense, and you saw how many people used a 6-piece tactician. You know, the hardwired set is more useful with the 5-piece and the BTSU, but even still, it's really not that great of a set. You just run your high ends. So we need to figure out a way to make your gear sets actually mean something, to actually be something, to make them viable. Okay? The raid is the raid, okay? I don't particularly enjoy the raid. I've cleared it 3 times, or I've been pulled through it 3 times, I guess I should say. You know, it's not terribly fun. It's not something that I look forward to trying to clear every week. I just don't care about the raid. It's, you know, at the moment on the PlayStation 4, 3.2% of the people that are still playing this game have cleared it. 3.2. And you can see that stat by looking at your trophy if you've cleared the raid yourself, okay? But 3.2%. So with 3.2% only clearing the raid, if you want to have exclusive things locked behind the raid, that's fine. But it should only be for raids. Okay? Raid-specific gear, like the tip of the spear, or your aces and eights, and things of that nature. Okay? Those are raid-specific. And it's for the guys and gals that want to run the raid for bragging rights. I've got 12-minute clears. I've got a 2-tap. I've got this. I've got that. You know, you continue to play the raid to get better gear for the raid. That's all that is. And if you want to lock things behind it, that's what you lock. If you want to lock some cosmetics behind it, then you lock that behind it. But in no shape, fashion, or form should you lock any exotics that nobody is capable of getting. Okay? Even if you go ahead and you add matchmaking to it and everything like that, you shouldn't lock those things behind there. Okay? All exotics and everything of that nature, all exotics, should be obtainable through the hardest content. And if I choose to run heroic missions, like in D1 with your legendary missions, at the end of the mission, give me an exotic cache. Or if you want, you know, have the boss drop a guaranteed exotic. Give people a reason to run these things. Okay? Nothing should be locked to that extent behind raids when you have that low of a percentage of people that are actually completing it. Normalization in the game is an absolute joke, and it's killing a lot of replayability, if you will. It seems for whatever reason, they've decided that if you roll a particular stat onto onto another piece of gear, that's the stat that gets nerfed. Why? Why are you nerfing gear that people have worked so hard in trying to maximize, especially at this point in the game? Normalization is an absolute joke. And if you want normalization, like in D1, you maximize the stats. That's it, okay? The stats that you've got are maximized, and you go. Conflict should not be normalized at all. It should be just like the ODZ. What you have is what you got. That is a straight PvP mode. So let people go in with the gear that they have and the stats that they have, okay? Sorry, drinking my coffee. Now, as far as the DZs, you know, there's 3 of them, that's fine. Thank you, Jarvis. The player count needs to be bumped to at least 16, maybe 20. Okay? I know they're small, but hear me out. The ODZ was presumed to be where PvP players want to go in PvP. None of your stats are normalized. You go in with what you got. And you fight. Right? Like the old Dark Zone in D1. Now, what I would do differently with the ODZ is you need to see rogues on the map. Period. You need to be able to see where they're at when you look at the map. The rewards for going manhunt and for clearing manhunt need to be extensive. The rewards need to be rewarded. Otherwise, you end up with what you get right here. Everybody standing in front of a checkpoint and fighting. And not giving 2 shits if they die. Because rank doesn't mean anything. And the perks that you get for hitting these ranks really don't mean anything. So the rewards need to be rewarded. Now I would take the difficulty of the ads in the normalized DZs. I would take the difficulty of those ads and I would bring them into the ODZ. Okay? Because the ads in the ODZ kill PvP. You can be in the middle of a firefight and have one of these roaming groups come around and literally stop the fight right there. Because those guys, they hit hard. So I would take the difficulty of the ads in the normalized Dark Zone, I bring them to the ODZ. So if they do show up, you can burn through them not relatively quick, but, a lot faster. Get them out of the way. If you will still have the nuisance of them being there, but it's not PvP stopping. It's not you focusing on an agent and then all of a sudden you getting shot in the back by an ad and it killing you. That's ridiculous. I would take the difficulty of the ads in the ODZ and I would put them in normalized. Now what that would do is that would promote group play. It would promote farming for the agents that want to go into the DZ and farm.
That's your target.
But you always have the option of going rogue, killing your teammates, taking their stuff, or being another group rolling through, going rogue, taking their stuff. But it would promote group play. And to know that if you go in there without a group, it's going to be difficult. It'll be like the ODZ now as far as the ads. And if you're with randoms and you farm a few landmarks and you go to extract and you decide to drop group and steal those agents' loots and get it extracted for yourself, well, then that's going to then be pretty hairy on your part, because now you're solo, you've got strong ads around you, and a possibility of 3 mad agents coming after you, you know? So what are you going to do at that point? That's how I would change that. The Eagle Bearer, I don't think needs a nerf, but I think everybody should have the opportunity of acquiring. If I say there was a nerf for it, I would say that tenacity needs to be reworked. It needs to be looked at. That talent is incredibly strong. That gun should be stronger than any of the other ARs because it's an exotic. All the exotics should be stronger than their counterparts of the high ends. No question about that. But it should be obtainable by more than 3% of the player base, okay? SMGs need a buff, absolutely. All the other weapons I think are in a pretty good spot. Maybe the rifle gets a buff, you know, but I think for the most part, the weapons are in a decent place. ARs are king, but let's bring up the other things to make them more viable. If you want to look at balancing weapons and everything like that, all you really need to do is look at categories, okay? So say the P416 and the G36, they're in the same category, they have the same RPM, they have the same mag size. Those guns should do the same amount of damage. Now if you want to mess with the accuracy and the stability to change up the weapon on how you want certain guns to feel and certain guns to handle, that's fine. If you want to mess with maybe the optimal range of those weapons, that's fine. But if it's in the same class and they're running same RPM, same mag size, those guns should do the same amount of damage. Look at the RPM of a weapon, figure out what you want to do as far as damage per bullet for that class, and then go on the RPM of the weapon. Okay? When you look at your stats in your gear, you have, you know, your armor, your health, your skill power, your weapon damage, things of that nature. And then you have the option of holding L3 and seeing what your stats look like normalized. And then you take that build into a PvP setting, say a normalized DZ or conflict or whatever, and all of a sudden your normalized stats aren't the numbers that you're getting when you're fighting agents, because now they're going through PvP modifiers. I've got a turret that does nearly 30k. When it's normalized, it does 16k. And when it hits an agent, it does 2k. So you've just taken nearly 27,000 damage per bullet from my turret. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. But what you should allow me to do is to be able to look at my stats through the PvP modifier. I should know that this turret isn't doing 16k on an agent. I should know that it's doing 2k. I should be able to hold L3 again and look at my PvP stats. So then I know this is what I'm doing. That way I don't have to sit and you know, in the firing range and sit and look and then calculate and look and calculate. That's ridiculous. PvP stats should be able to be looked at. Everything in the game should be OP in its own right. Everything. If you're spec'd heavily into firearms, heavily into being a tank, heavily into being a skill build, everything should be overpowered. But everything should have a counter. If I have, say, a skill, say for example, my Seekers. Say my Seeker hits pretty hard, and it's not killing you, but it's hurting you pretty good. You should be able to have a counter for that. And that counter, say if you're a DPS, is to kill me, because I have no armor. Run a jammer of some sort to jam my skills. You know, there should always be a counter for everything, but everything should be overpowered in its own right. You should feel strong, but you should know that you are weak when you come across X, okay? The gear score absolutely needs to get messed with. The gear score doesn't matter. You know, stats. I can have a gear piece that's 450 that has a higher stat roll than something that I'm getting on a 500, and that's ridiculous. We all know that's ridiculous, and hopefully that gets looked at and that gets changed.
Route access granted.
The crafting materials need to be bumped up to like 4K. Because this 400, when 60 electronics is required and everything like that, that's ridiculous. You get one roll a day if you're lucky. If you don't sit there and farm for, you know, electronics or ceramics or polycarbon or whatever the case is, whatever it is that you're short on, 400 is entirely way too small amount for the amount that they charge you for re-rolling things. So either drop the amount that it costs or up how much I can have. That way you can go through and you can actually roll shit. You know, crafting materials should be sold. Crafting materials should get dropped from bosses. Crafting materials should be given to you through field proficiency caches. It should be there. There should be blueprints for absolutely everything that's in the game. Every chest piece, every mask, every gun, every knee pad. There should be a blueprint for all of it. So if you're trying to find that one particular thing and you can't, like in D1, you could sit there and you could make 80 M4s and look for those rolls that you were wanting. You should be capable of doing that in this. The jammer pulse, I believe, needs a rework. The charging of it is fine if you want to charge it, but the radius on it is so small that it's almost useless. So you can either rework the jammer pulse to work like a normal pulse, but have to charge it up, have a higher cooldown on it, or even come up with an EMP chem launcher of some sort. You know, like you had the disruptor sticky in D1, you could have an EMP chem launcher in D2. So you could shoot it out, you know, keep some distance, jam them up. Alright? That's pretty much everything that I can think of right here off the top. If you like my ideas, let me know. If you don't like my ideas, let me know. Some of it may not be any good, some of it may be great. Let me know. You know, if we don't know what the ETF is going to do. We don't know what kind of changes are coming. But I hope some of these things are looked at and some of these things are changed to help bring the game back to where it should be. This game is too predicated on babying PvE players, and we all know that PvP is what kept D1 alive, and PvP is what's going to keep D2 alive. If they do not focus on it and make PvP fun and enjoyable and rewarding, this game will not last another year at all. It's not really surviving right now as it is. So, if you like it, if you didn't like it, let me know. If you got your own ideas, let me know. And until the next time, fuck off.